Okay, yeah, Esther 7, and it's supposed to be verse, or is that where we are?
No.
No, we're in Esther 6. I think it's Esther 6, verse 7. Yep. Extra, extra. Esther, Esther 6, verse 7.
Skip it.
Mm-hmm. And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let his apparel and his horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes. I don't know who he thought that was going to be, because he thinks he's higher than a noble prince. That they may array the man withal, whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man the king delighteth to honor. Here, Haman is setting himself up. He thinks to receive accolades, to receive praise. What he's actually doing is he's setting himself up for a big fall. So be careful. When you try to set something up deceitfully, be careful it doesn't backfire. That's exactly what happens to him. He does this thing. It's all set up. He's thinking, okay, this is exactly what I want. So I'm going to tell the king to do it this way. Then it turns out it's going to be his arch enemy who's going to get it all. Well, if he had known that to begin with, he would have said, well, just, pull him in private and give him a pat on the back and be done with it. But it didn't work out that way. Haman advises the king to do all of these things, to this supposed whoever that great man is that you want to honor, and who could it be but me? Let's quit kidding ourselves. And let's find one of the king's noble princes. There's got to be several of those running around somewhere, but, a noble prince will be okay for me to be led around with. Turns out he's going to be the noble prince. He's going to be the one who gets to lead the parade. And the man sitting in the seat of honor is not going to be the one he wanted. It's going to be his enemy. This situation is similar to what happens to Joseph, only Joseph didn't engineer it. God did. Let God engineer your honoring. God can honor you. When we get to where we think we need honor and we engineer it ourselves, it either backfires like this or that's the last you hear of it. If God honors you, it'll be honored forever, and it'll be honored before people where it matters. In Genesis 41, verse 41. Genesis 41:41. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over the land of Egypt. Joseph didn't ask for that. Pharaoh just said, I'm doing it. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in his vesture of fine linen, and put gold chain about his neck, and made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. Nobody's doing that for what Haman thinks is going to be himself. He didn't think of that one. He didn't know Jewish history very well, did he? Bow the knee. And they made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Okay, he gets a good coronation there. He gets a good honor. Joseph does. But Joseph didn't think that up. God did. And you see what he did? He put it on a heathen king. He said, you may be a pagan king. That's okay. I'm going to have you honor my man. All the world has to serve our God. Anytime he decides, they will do his bidding. Period. Everybody gets a paycheck here. And by and large, most of them aren't coming from some Christian who wants to bless you. They're coming from some pagan or somebody who's worshiping the dollar bill, and they think that you're helping them, so they're going to write you a check. God's engineered that whole thing so you can get a check. And he's using the world to do it. And he'll use this world. It's his. This is actually, with Joseph, it's a picture of the exaltation of Jesus Christ one day. He'll be exalted in front of all the people. Everybody's going to know he is the ruler. It'll be obvious one day. The other thing it shows is it shows a picture of the Jews, Israel in type, they will be exalted themselves as a nation. In Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 28, verse 13. Deuteronomy 28:13. He says, "And the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail." That is, Israel, you're going to be number one. "And thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them." So he told Israel as a nation right there, if you'll do the things I've told you to do, I'll promise you a spot in this world that'll be above everybody else. Every other nation is going to serve you. You're going to be the head only. You'll never slip below that position. Well, they've slipped below that position. Well, they didn't fulfill everything he said to do. He said, if you remember my covenants and my promises and you'll do them, then you'll get that. Well, they haven't done it. He's still going to keep this thing right here. In the millennium, they get the spot. They get it. Well, that's going to be pictured in our story with Esther. Mordecai is getting a place of honor above all the rest of them. And he's the outcast. But he's getting put up on high, just like Israel, the nation, will be. Just like Jesus Christ. He came to his own received him not. Well, one day they're not going to have a choice. He'll either receive them or destroy them. In Esther chapter 6, verse 10. Esther 6, verse 10. Then the king said to Haman, "Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth in the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken." He says, man, that sounds like great. Those are some great ideas. Do everything you just said. That sounds great. Everything you just said. And there's a little Jew sitting out yonder. You probably won't even know him. He'll be in the gate down there. Go look and see if you can find him. He knows who he is. It's not the one he wanted to pick. He wanted himself to be picked. In verse 10, Haman's hopes and aspirations have been dashed. He was thinking, okay, the king's going to name me as this man of honor. But the king makes it very plain. It ain't you I'm talking about. Everything you said sounds good, except you're just thinking the wrong name. Let me put a name in your head. How about the Jew down there? That's not the one he wanted to hear. He says, make haste. That is, get up and do it quickly. Act like you're in a hurry. Get some urgency about you. That's the thing missing in modern times. The youth today cannot work with any kind of urgency. It's all lackadaisical, and we got all the time in the world, and we don't really know what we're doing, and we don't really care. There's some urgency back when I was growing up. you had better move, or it would be painful. Here, the king, when the king tells you to do something, you would move with urgency anyway. But this puts another level on it. When the king says, do it with haste. That's a double whammy right there.
You didn't have time to think about it.
No, sir. He's running through the wardrobe, picking them out fast as he can, grabbing that ring, yelling and hollering at people, go get that horse, get it, come on, good, we gotta go. The king, yeah. He says that the king delights to honor. Okay, that's not the phrase that Mordecai, or that Haman once proclaimed about Mordecai, the king delighting in the one he hates. One day the world is going to realize Jesus Christ delights in us, the outcast. On this side of the grave, you're probably the outcast. And delight is not something the world thinks in the same sentence with your name. But one day they're going to hear Jesus Christ say that he delights. He says you're accepted in the beloved. Think about that for a minute. Jesus Christ is God's beloved. If you're in that, then you're accepted in his beloved. You're the beloved too. John used to always call himself in the book of John, the beloved. The one that Jesus loved so much. And really, I think everybody should feel that way individually. If you really think about it and all the things God's done for you personally, and just the information he lets you have, he doesn't have to explain anything in here. But then he lets us know a few things. That's special. That's on a plane way above human intelligence. And God lets us have some of that. That's good. That makes you feel special. Now, in our story here, you don't see God's hand through the command of a prophet, but you do see it moving because all of these things are being orchestrated by somebody, and it wasn't their intent to do it. God's doing this thing. God moves in the affairs of man, whether man sees it or not, whether man's asking for it or not, but he's always moving. The king calls Mordecai the Jew. We discussed that a little bit. The normal question is, doesn't the king realize that all the Jews are condemned to death? Because that was his command. You could kill them. But he didn't himself ever really know it was the Jews. He wasn't told that information. Look at it in Esther 3, verse 8. Esther 3, verse 8. This is how this decree of execution comes into play. Exodus 3, verse 8. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people. He didn't tell him what certain people it was, just a certain people, scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. Now remember, this guy's got a humongous kingdom, all the known world at this time. So in his eyes, he's not identifying it as a Jew. He doesn't identify it as anybody. And then let's see the other incentive. Look at verse 9. This kind of blinds the king's eyes to investigation. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. Destroyed? How about exterminated? And I will pay, incentive. Okay, I don't need any further investigation. You're going to put money in my pocket? That talks. 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the business, executions, the murder. We'll call it business. And bring it into the king's treasure. Okay, so that's how he handles it. And that's the way it always happens. When Hitler wanted to take care of all the Jews in his time, he called it the final solution, not mass murder, genocide. Let's call it what it is. Okay, killing people. Final solution. Doesn't that sound sophisticated? Here Haman says, the people in charge of the business. It's just business.
Nothing personal.
Well, that's right, nothing personal. I'm just going to kill you. It's just business. It's not personal. Yeah, you're killing my person. That's personal. Yeah. Get any more personal than that. Okay, Haman never told the king who the people were that were to be destroyed. And we see that from just what's been written in the account. Esther also was ignorant of this until she was informed of it. She had to be informed of it, and it was not a widely known thing until it all came out. Haman kept everything hidden from the king because he didn't want any part of it to be a problem. So he just revealed a little piece here, a little piece there. Let's throw some money on top of it. That'll hide it. And that's the way they get bills passed in Congress. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit of information in there. It's going to be in the fine print. But then I'm going to throw a bunch of sugar on top. Y'all are going to love this. But don't look at the 45 riders that are sitting on the back side of it. It's politics, still working the same way. So anyway, Haman has to honor Mordecai, his archenemy, in the way that he had just prescribed to Ahasuerus. John chapter 12, verse 26. John 12, verse 26. Here's a promise from God, from Jesus Christ. If any man serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, there shall also my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor. That's a pretty good promise right there. God says right there, God himself is going to honor anybody who serves him. Now, our service is just minuscule in comparison to the many things that people have had to go through before us, like the martyrs. But God right there is going to honor you one day. Service is not ignored. Now, it might feel like it is, just like it did with Mordecai. For a long time, what he had done for the king was ignored, he thought. Then one night, God kicks the king out of bed, says, hey, no sleeping tonight. You got some reading to do. And he starts reading and he finds out Mordecai has not been honored and it needs to be done. And so it happens. Same way with you and I. One day, if you'll serve God faithfully now, one day you'll be honored where it matters. In Romans chapter 14, verse 12. Romans 14, verse 12. The Bible says, so then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Now, I know that's always taken negative, and it is negative. However, there's a positive side to it, too. He wants to know the good things, too, because his job is he's going to honor some people. What's he say over there in Revelation? He says, behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me. He's got some rewards. He takes pleasure in honoring servants that have done well. Now, there's another side to that, too. If we'll get busy worrying about the man in the mirror's problems instead of the man in the mirror's accolades, then maybe we won't waste so much time on the other people's problems. It's easy for us to find somebody else's problems to talk about, but it's not so easy to find our own because we're so close to it. It's hard to see our own. Well, it's not hard. We just like to ignore it. But it's best not to spend as much time on the other people's problems as we do on our own. You can't ignore the others either. You know, there's wickedness around you that has to be reproved. That's true. However, don't do that at the expense of not reproving your own wickedness. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. So, be an equal opportunity reprover. Start in the mirror. Esther 6, verse 12. Says, and Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house, mourning, and having his head covered. So after he gives his arch enemy Mordecai the honor that he was hoping was going to be his, it says Mordecai runs back to his post after the shindig's over, and Haman says, I got to get out here as quick as I can get, and don't let anybody see me. I can cover my head. It's almost reminiscent of the mobster days. You know, when they'd catch somebody in the mob, they would always cover their head or whatever so they wouldn't be seen. Well, until John got him, and then he was all excited for everybody to see him. But historically, they didn't want to be seen. You and I are the same way. When God puts his finger on our sin, we don't want to be seen. We want to hide too. That's what Adam and Eve did. They said, quick, give me some fig leaves or something. Come on, learn how to sew, woman. But that's what we all do. We all want to hide behind something because to be found out by God is scary. Haman's world has shattered. It's all fallen apart now. And it's fallen apart faster than he built it up. He took all of this time, all of this engineering and thought went into propping himself up. And look how fast God destroyed it. Just like God just woke up and said, oh, forget that one, let's go over here. That fast. And that's what happens to him. He runs home just as quick as he can get there. And no doubt that he's just as humiliated, beat red in the face as he can be. And he runs home and he says, look, I gotta get somebody in here that I can talk to and get some advice from. The last time he called a special meeting, it was to brag about how tight he was with the king, remember? Now all of a sudden things ain't going quite as smooth as he was hoping they would.
That was so yesterday.
That was so 25 minutes ago, that's right.
For real.
Let's say Mordecai though. Mordecai on the other hand, doesn't bask in the glory he's just been given, even though he could. He was just honored by the king. And rather than take it for a day and be proud of himself, he just goes right back to his post.
Are you still fasting? What are you guys doing? Are you praying for my daughter? Let's go.
Yeah. He doesn't brag to his co-workers, hey, you know who I am? Hey, do you know who I am? That's right. Yeah, he doesn't let it go to his head. And that's a good thing to remember. Don't be too proud of the things people claim they're proud of you about. Remember, on Palm Sunday when Jesus came in, they were throwing coats and palm leaves in the street and saying, Hosanna and glory to God and let's make him king. And this is the best thing since sliced bread, even though it hadn't been invented yet. But then it wasn't, 3 days later, they're killing him. That's that same crowd. The same crowd. Very same crowd. So you can't trust people. Don't worry about people. You can enjoy it. You can get a smile out of it, but then let it go just as quick as it came. Otherwise, you become Haman, and your world will crash real quick. Don't take your own press too serious. Honor from God is good, and a lot of times God will honor you. But even in that case, just like Mordecai, let God get the honor from it. Send it right back to him. And even then, don't go bragging about it. If God gave you the honor, he can brag about it too. You don't have to do the bragging. Let him do it. Esther chapter 6, verse 13. Back to Haman. Esther 6, verse 13. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends, everything that had befallen him. Yeah, befallen, all right. Then said his wise men and Zeresh, his wife, unto him, if Mordecai be the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall. Begun, they saw it too. You're falling, buddy. How do they rate the president? Your popularity poll or whatever. Say, Haman, your popularity poll has dropped. You're in the negative now. Thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. Now, that's not the prophecy he wanted to hear from his buddies, but they sure laid it on him. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains and hastened to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Here we go.
He says, okay, this thing is over with. I was going in there to tell the king it's time to hang Mordecai. I couldn't get in there and get my speech that I had all prepared. I couldn't even spit it out to the king before he told me I had to honor the crazy nut. Okay, so I did. I honored him. Now, y'all got to help me with this thing. And the only advice they can give him is, hey, you're not doing too well, buddy. And if that guy's a Jew, the one you just fell before, that means you're going down. Well, thanks, friends. Then before he can reply, give a rebuttal and try to save himself. They're knocking at the door. It's time to go see the queen. Well, bad's going to get worse. Hang on. His conversation, Haman's conversation, has always been about him. All the way through. When he was proud about being tight with the king and the queen, it was about, look how great I am. When he went in to see the king and the king started talking about something, he could only see the man in the mirror. It must be me. Then when poor things, when the thing fell apart for him and poor is me, how do you say that? Woe is me. Woe is me. Yeah. Goes running to his wife and his buddies. Y'all got to help me. It's all me, 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 me. It's the only song he knows how to sing. Well, his friends suddenly revealed themselves. Wicked friends are always wicked friends. They're in it for the same thing he was in it for, themselves. And It doesn't say it here, but you can just feel it in the story. They're ready to start distancing themselves from him.
They have 20 you on me, buddy.
Yeah.
Before you leave.
Yeah.
But one thing
This
is,
way,
though, at
Rob?
least this time they spoke truth.
They did, that's right.
Before they pumped him up, but this time they told him the truth, you're gonna fall.
Yep. They know there's somebody behind this. It's not just happenstance, because Haman's worked very hard to get himself in the position he's in. And he was proud that it was finally working. Now, when it's all falling apart so fast, they're thinking, hey, look, wait a minute. Somebody else is behind this. And that Jew is on top now. You're done for, buddy. It's over. Verse 14. That'll be the end of the beginning of the end for him. He goes in there to the banquet with Esther, and that meal wasn't a happy meal. He was not at McDonald's. This will be in chapter 6 is the beginning of his fall, the beginning of the fall of Haman. And chapter 14 is going to introduce us to the Lord, how the Lord finishes a man off. He's just going to destroy him and take him out. It's going to be over with quickly. Now, we've seen all the way through this build-up, constant turmoil. And within just like that, it's over. That's our life. It feels like trouble a lot of times. Builds and builds and builds and builds. But if God's your God and not something else you've made God, He'll calm the storm and it'll be over just as fast as you can blink. It's like the next day you turn around and say, well, did we have some problem here some time ago? I can't remember. That's the way it happens. When you look back, the troubles aren't as bad, but when you're going through them, buddy, they feel bad. And we're going to see the whole nation, all the Jews, are in some serious, deep trouble. But when they get through with this thing, it's going to be like there never was any trouble, and they have the upper hand, and they get to have a killing spree. Now, that's not a popular subject, but we'll cover it. They get to have a killing spree and go day after day doing it. Then we'll get into the morality of that later. Okay, that ends us. Next week, we'll start on chapter 7. We made it through that whole chapter.